Alright, here is the video portion of this review, and this is of the Pearl Mimic Pro, as you can see in front of you here. And I'm going to go over a handful of the options that are in here. So first of all, zooming in here, we can see that there is a 7-inch touchscreen. And the touchscreen is very responsive, so as you touch and drag, you can see things like headphones volume can quickly and easily move. The interface is very easy to get around in, so the first thing to see here is the kit selection. So you can see up in the top, we have the actual choice of what the numbers are there. And I have my set list set to the main kit list, and you can use the forward and back buttons here to get to the various different things, various different kits. So you can see, for example, as I'm switching here back and forth between the Masters and the Popular, it takes about 2 seconds for the kit to fully load. So if you're in a live situation, certainly you don't want to be doing this in the middle of a song, but between songs is not a problem. To get to the whole list, if you double tap on the list there, you can see the entire list, which you can use the scroll bar on the side, or you can use this knob here to scroll between all of the different kits. And you'll notice here in my list, all of these that are prefaced with the U are user kits, and basically as soon as you modify any of the internal kits, it will automatically save as the user version of that. So in this case, this happens to be the third iteration of my edits to the Masters kit. And that's the one that is kind of the default starter kit. And so you just tap on that, hit load kit, and that gets you your kit. Or you can of course do a delete, a rename, etc. So you can also of course set lists and whatnot. These sliders over here to the right are the main volumes as they are in the headphones. So if I want to turn down the room, for example, in the headphones, I just turn that down here. There is a separate mixer for the headphones and for the Master. So this is what's going to happen in the phones, and those on the home screen are sort of shortcuts to these. On the Master mix, this is what's going to go out. The Master outputs, which are back here on the back, and those would be here. So if you're just doing a stereo, that's how those will go. Otherwise, it will use the routing, and you can see, for example, on mine, I have the DB25 plugged in here, which I have going out to my sound card. So I'm going out to 8 individual outs there. So I've got my kick, my snare, a pair of stereo toms, a pair of stereo room, and a pair of stereo overheads. And then I also have these 2 individuals going out over here that are the hi-hat direct and the ride direct, so I get a little bit extra of those. And so those are going to be controlled from in the mic section. So you can see, for example, in the kicks, this is the main kick, and so you can see my direct volume and the balance between what are the inside and the outside mic. Now you can split those separately, or you can balance them and say there's a 61 balance on that. How much of it is being sent to the overheads, and then also how much is being sent to the room. The panning, and then if you've got reverb, you can send your direct to reverb, you can send your overhead to reverb, and you can send your room to reverb, and then the overall instrument volume over there. For each mic, there are also effects, so you can do compression and you can do EQ. So if you turn that compression on, then these settings would apply to that individual kick, and in this case, direct mic. Same thing for the snares. So here I'm on the primary snare. The toms, the tom 1, tom 2, tom 3. I happen to have my aux set as a tom as well. Hi-hat, ride, the other cymbals, which you can see those cymbals here. Crash 1, crash 2. I've got my other cymbal as an aux. Percussion, and then you've got the overhead and the room as well. where you can change, different, things about the room mics. So you can, for example, on the EQ, you can modify that EQ to change just the way that the EQ on the room itself works. And you can see that this is actually flat, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And we go back to home. On the bottom, you've got your mixer, your trigger settings, and your kit selection. So for the kit selection, when you get there, you can see you've got your kick and your layer, your snare and your layer, hi-hat, ride, a series of toms, your 2 crashes, and then your auxes across the bottom here. And then there's a page 2 for additional options there as well. And for any one of these, say for example the kick, you would go into the kick, choose to load an instrument there, and then you can choose which kick you want to load. And you can see that there's a pretty good selection of things here, from Ludwigs and Pearls and sonars and Tamas and DWs and hard and soft beaters, for example, on those, and some additional ones on page 2. Same thing goes for the toms and the snare. So if I go into the snare and load instruments, you'll see that there's a load of snares in there. And same thing with the toms. So I've got a bunch of different toms loaded in there as well. Now in this case, I actually have the new toms, which are the Pearl reference toms here, that are loaded in, and that was an addition that they've already come up with from Pearl pre-release. And then you've got your settings in here where you can do things like choose to import or export your settings, your kits, etc. You can set your routing in here. So for example, you can see I have my kick set to go to mono 7 on that DP25 up here, and that's what determines what's going to actually go out to my DAW. The system will let you do things like apply your software updates. So it's a very easy to get around unit. I have definitely done some videos on the actual playability of it, and you can see in my case I'm using the Roland hats, and these are all Roland pads around my kit. The PD120s, PDX8, PD105s, and those are 120s as well over there, and then I've got a KD80 down there. And they all work really well. And when you go into the settings for any of these, for example in the snare, you can see that there's all kinds of things in here to tweak it to be exactly what you want, from setting the input gain on it to how much of a threshold, how low a volume it'll listen to, separate center and rim settings for that, how your different layers are going to be set for your center and rim shot, and which triggers those are going to hit for layer 1 and layer 2 of the snare, the different volumes for those things, the velocity curve, so you can adjust this by just a drag, how much dynamic range that's going to have, MIDI notes that are assigned to the various different layers in there, and then the velocity modulation or modifications on the different zones as well. And this exists across all of the different pads. So very flexible in those terms. So hopefully this quick little walkthrough gives you a better idea of how exactly the Mimic works.